ultimately you just want to work with a producer and a director and a team who it feels really collaborative with, and who you feel are going to really listen to your opinions. You know, casting directors, you're paid for your opinion. That's why you're brought on, and that's why casting directors work a lot with certain directors more than once. You know, the director likes their tastes, like they like their way of thinking, they like the people that are put forward to them. So it's, you know, I guess a meeting of minds. You want to make sure that you're working in a team where you feel like your opinion is really respected, and where you can feel like you can put people forward and you know, introduce interesting actors to a team.
Today I'm joined by Casting Director Jemima McWilliams. Jemima, how you doing? And thank you for joining me.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm very good, thanks. I'm good. I've just avoided the rain, so I'm very happy about that.
It's weird, isn't it? It's like such a topsy-turvy. I mean, it's British weather, but
it is.
It's all
it
over
is
the
indeed.
Place. It's that thing where I think because of the past few months, you go, oh, it's June, and it's like, how did that happen? And then you
got your heating on.
I've said it a few times. It feels like a Christopher Nolan movie where like the concept of time is just
absolutely,
completely.
Totally, especially right now. Yeah.
So you've been, I mean, we were just talking off this about how you've sort of been dealing with it, I guess, from a personal perspective, but professionally, obviously everything's stopped and maybe it's slowly starting up now.
Yeah.
How have you found this period just from a professional perspective?
Well, I mean, when this whole thing started, so about 3 months ago, I had just cast, nobody had signed their contracts yet, but I just cast a really low budget film, which I was really excited about, and all the team were really excited about, and that was just about to get going. And I was also about to start on a series for a studio, which involved kids, and they needed people for the summer holidays, and obviously that's all kind of now not happening anymore because it was filming in Europe. But I was so gutted at the beginning because it was really exciting to have these projects coming up and to be feeling really busy, because when we finished on James Bond in November, it was quite a quiet period because, as we all know, working in this industry, December, January, February are always quite a dark time, and there's not necessarily all that much kicking off. So I was feeling really excited about the work and what was coming up. So yeah, when it first began, I was really, felt really gutted. But I tried very much to think, come on, you know, try and use this horrible time positively. And I was watching a lot of stuff that I'd never had the chance to watch. I really love European cinema, so I was trying to watch a lot of foreign films. I'm really just trying to, I guess, enjoy having time, which we never normally have. And obviously this has all gone on for a lot longer than any of us thought, really. So I guess my routine that I started off quite well with then sort of slightly slipped, and before I knew it, I was watching lots of terrible trashy TV that I should not have been poisoning my mind with. But
excellent.
I've tried, exactly.
Better than the news, though. Better than watching.
No, well, exactly. So much better than the news. And also, I've tried to be watching, and I don't know if you've watched any of, you know, the National Theatre has been showing.
I haven't, but I know they've been doing a lot of shows.
Oh, it's so worth it if you get the chance, because it's stuff I didn't get to see, like Coriolanus, and various other plays that are, you know, amazing and had such amazing cast, and that, you know, tickets were so expensive for. So it was really great to be able to watch them online for free. And in the past kind of 2 weeks, so it was totally dead, you know, tumbleweed for quite a long time, obviously, because nobody knew what was going to happen. But then in the past couple of weeks, things are slowly starting to pick up a bit again. Like me and Debbie, who I work with, we've just signed up to an animation project, which is great because it just means that obviously there's no filming crew or anything. It's just actors in a room with a sound person, and so that's very contained and easy to manage. And then a lot of other projects, it looks like are going to try and go from around September. So we've been in development on a couple of things for ages, and fingers crossed we might be able to get them off the ground in time for then. So yeah, I mean, it was a dark period for a long time, and, you know, financially, and also wondering how our careers were going to look after all of this was over, really, and wondering sort of, you know, whether there was going to be work for a considerably long time, and if there was going to be enough of work for how many casting directors there are, and everybody, you know, actors, everybody. but I'm feeling a lot more kind of positive about it now, I suppose, now that people do, you know, a lot of my kind of colleague, well, not my colleagues, but a lot of my other friends who are casting directors are exactly seem to be getting a bit busier. So that's a real relief.
It's that thing of like, obviously you guys are freelance too, just as much as the rest of us. And, you know, exactly. I think everybody took a mega hit, and then your brain starts to go, what does that mean for the future? And then when you can't see past tomorrow, the next 3 months just becomes like this black hole of, you just don't know. But I think we all kind of adapt and pivot and sort of find new ways. Like there was I know there's lots of voiceover recordings that people were getting people to do from home and stuff. Yeah. And whilst it's not ideal, you know, there's still ways, I think, of adapting to whatever, you know, happened, and still the restrictions, I guess, we're still gonna probably have.
Yeah.
That kids show, then what happens with that? Is that shelved completely, or do you have to wait till next year or the next break for kids?
I just don't know. I mean, I haven't, so it was for a studio, and I just haven't heard from them. I mean, I don't quite know, you know, maybe they adapt it and maybe they make it for older kids who it's not so difficult to get out of school and have on school holidays, or maybe they wait. I mean, or maybe they do it in a shorter period of time, you know, maybe over Christmas holidays, or it's so difficult because they needed a long window. So I'm just not sure what's going to happen.
The thing of child casting, isn't it? That like nobody really knows about it until you realize you have to cast one. And then you're like, I need the permits, and I need, if they're in school time, then I need a tutor that's on set that teaches them. And then there's only a certain number of hours they can work, and they need a chaperone. And you're like, now I know why they get someone who's 18 or above to play younger.
I know. Well, exactly. I know it's a complete, and if a kid has done quite a lot of work before, it seems to be a bit of an easier process. But if they're like, you know, I want this child who's never done anything, you know, I don't want anyone to have seen any of their work before, you're thinking, oh my God, it could be 3 or 4 weeks until we get this license, and will it happen? And yeah, so I mean, I'm excited for it when it happens, but God knows when that will be.
Yeah, let's get through the rest of this year first. Exactly. Probably won't be 2020.
Probably not.
Cool. So if we can maybe take a step back just for a second and maybe go to, I guess, the Jemima McWilliams origin story of casting, to make it sound, you know, as grandiose as I can. Like,
thank you.
You know, everybody, I think most people know that your mom has obviously worked very, very closely with the Bond franchise and done, you know.
Yeah, she's my great auntie, but yes.
Oh, sorry.
No, not at all. Bad. Everyone always thinks she's my mom. Yeah.
Why do people think that? Why did I think that? Has that just got out as like a...
We have the same surname, and so people know we're related, and I think that's the first relationship that people, I mean, you're not the first. Honestly, the director of Bond thought exactly the same thing. So
well, I feel a little bit better now. My ego's not flared out of that too much.
Not at all.
Interesting. It's probably one of those like mythical tales. I'm going to keep saying it's your mom just to propagate the myth. Anyway, it's in the family.
Yes.
Let's put it that way. But you, I think, obviously you worked first at Curtis Brown, I think was one of your first roles. And then you moved into casting. Like what sort of got you into the world? And then how did you evolve from, I guess, moving from agency side into what you now do in a casting perspective?
Well, so when I went to university, I studied music, and I had absolutely no idea what I really wanted to do with my life. I think looking back, I probably wouldn't have gone to university. I went because all my friends were going, and I thought it was what I should do. But actually working in this industry now, it was a wonderful life experience, don't get me wrong, but I think I would have really benefited perhaps from coming into it that bit earlier and building up my relationship slightly earlier. But when I left uni, Debbie, my great auntie / mum, took me to a party which was for a really quite wonderful flamboyant director. And at this party there were various different agents, 2 of which were from this company called Curtis Brown. And I got chatting to them, and they were so nice. And I never really knew what agents did, to be honest. I think a lot of people prior to coming into this industry don't really know enough about the world of agents. But they said, well, why don't you come in and meet everybody and see, you know, whether you might like to work with us. And now, you know, I feel so lucky that I met them when I did, because now the internship application process is much more rigorous and, you know, much more competitive, whereas back then I think it was a bit more chilled. And so I went in to meet them, And I got a job working as an intern for, I think I was there for it was meant to be 3 months, and I stayed for 6. And then what was so great is that they seemed to like me, so they kept moving me around the company until I then found a more permanent job as an assistant to acting agents. And I stayed with them for 2 years, and I really loved it. I mean, it's I remember my first 2 weeks of working at Curtis Brown, Robert Pattinson came in, and all these like incredibly handsome actors and really talented actresses and so on came in, and I was like, God, why would anybody want to work anywhere else? This is just amazing. And I was only 21, and it was my first job in the industry.
Was this peak Twilight period as well? Peak
yes,
Twilight,
totally.
Twilight Pattinson. Okay.
Peak Twilight.
There you go.
Exactly. No, it was very, very exciting. And I was going to the theatre all the time, and I tried to say yes to everything. Whenever I was invited to something, I'd be like, oh my gosh, I'll come. And it was great because all these scripts would come in, and I was the intern, so I got the opportunity to read them. And it just felt like I was right at the centre of this amazing creative world. And I absolutely loved it. But so kind of towards the end of my time at Curtis Brown, when you're an assistant there, one of your jobs is to put actors on tape quite regularly for American projects, or sometimes they might want to come in and have a bit of help with the self-tape. And I guess the thing I enjoyed the most about being an assistant were those experiences. So the actors will come in and we talk about the role, we talk about a project, and then we do the self-tape, and we'd try out a few different ways, and I might make some suggestions in terms of direction, and I loved it. And I thought, this is much more, I'm not very good at selling, which ultimately when you're an agent, you're a salesperson, and that has to be something that you're good at and that you're comfortable with. Whereas I increasingly realized that wasn't me. But I loved being in a room with the actors and directing them and discussing projects and kind of collaborating.
You're creating, right? Yeah.
Exactly, creating. And so Debbie, who obviously I've known my whole life, has always been casting. And I had done the odd little bit of helping her out with auditions in my summer holidays. So I thought, I can't do this job anymore. I just need out. And also being in a big corporate company, I don't think is for everybody either. You have to conform to so many different rules and regulations, and I'd had my time with it. So I left and went traveling for a few months, came back, and I actually worked for Sony TV for a year, which was really nice. Worked for some really amazing people, but nothing to do with drama. And I really missed that a lot. And Debbie said, well, look, why don't you come and work for me after a year that I was there? And I think that was nearly 6 years ago now. So I'm really lucky, I'm very aware that not everybody has such an easy stepping stone into casting, but I've tried to make sure I always make the most of the fact that I've been given this kind of amazing platform to work, and so hopefully I'll be able to continue to do that. But yeah, I mean, I feel so lucky I'm sure you probably feel the same as an actor, like you feel so lucky to be working in such a creative industry.
Exactly.
Do you feel the same?
Yeah. I mean, I think the fact is it's that thing of, do you choose it or does it choose you, is also that kind of point, right? Which sounds really wanky when you say that out loud. But it is
it's true.
But it is that thing of, we're here for such a short time on this kind of rotating rock that's Earth. And it's like, well, why would you do something that you don't really enjoy? I know you got to pay bills, and there's got to be practicality to that, of course. But
yeah,
if you find that whatever you do lights something inside of you, then why would you not pursue that and explore it and test it? And from what you're talking about in your start, you tried different things as well. It's not like you just stuck with one, and you could have stayed. It would have been easy to just stay at Curtis Brown. Like, you could have been set in some sense of the word, right? And for other people, that's their ideal job, possibly. And maybe you grow out of stuff too.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it's, thinking about it now, I'm still really good friends with a lot of people that work there, and they've got these incredible lists, and, they've got a very stable, well, as stable as it can be, but stable sort of line of work. And, there are moments where I think, oh my gosh, I've left behind a salary, I've left behind all these things. But I think the freedom that you have when you're a freelancer is actually, the thought of giving it up is very, very hard once you've been doing it for a long time.
Well, and also to be fair, like, you know, with COVID, like what's a secure job anyway anymore?
Well, yeah, very true.
Is the other thing.
That's
Like
very true.
we've been doing this for long enough to kind of almost be able to show everybody else that I know you're panicking. I know you don't have anything coming in right now. Don't worry, it's gonna be fine. You're gonna find a way. You'll figure it out. Like, just maybe you don't need, you know, 3 fancy trips this year, or like six sports coats or pairs of Gucci shoes. Just buy 5.
Yeah,
So
it's true.
yeah. Also, I know. I mean, so we met obviously through the Manuel Piro stuff. So you're pretty big. I think, did you just do one last week?
Yes, I did one last week, and I'm doing one next week.
Oh wow, it's keeping you busy.
I'm so. Do you know what? When Manuel first started the workshops, I can't remember how long ago I did my first one now, but it was amazing because it was in a period when I wasn't really working and I wasn't busy, and I was like, oh my gosh, great, you know. And I wasn't really sure what to expect when I did the first workshop, but I love it. And everybody brings, you know, I don't know if your listeners will be familiar with them, but you know, 20 different actors all doing the same scene. It's really kind of inspiring for me to watch and see how different everybody perceives something. And so it's great. So yeah, one last week, one next week. Manuel does keep me busy, but I'm so grateful to him because it's such a joy to do it.
And he's great. I had him on a few weeks ago, and he's like the nicest guy in casting.
Nicest.
The best stories.
Yes.
I just shut up and let him talk. I mean, he told me the story of how he kind of first got into it way back when, and he was sending his resumes out with Kit Kats in.
No way.
So like he would have put Kit Kats in there as kind of like his sort of bribe, and then he used the Kit Kat motto of with a take a break, have a Kit Kat, or whatever the motto is. But he kind of sort of molded it to himself to be along the lines of like, so like I'm gonna butcher the paraphrase. It was like take a break and hire me, or something like that. He was super smart with it. I
love that. What a good idea.
So great. And then so I put that episode out, and then Andrea Clark found it on Twitter, and she was like, I remember that Kit Kat that came on, because she was working for Jeremy Zimmerman at the time, and like, oh no, that, like, I remember that. I ate that Kit Kat. Like, I remember that.
Brilliant.
Story.
Brilliant.
Fantastic. And I think what he's built there is he's very humble about it, but it's like it's a bit of a game changer. So from an actor's perspective, to go to your point of seeing 20 different takes of the same scene, like we don't see that when we get a self-tape, or even when we come in the room. Maybe in like a workshop in person, you kind of see it, but this is different.
Yeah.
To be able to go back and see 19 other people do one of the scenes that you gave them for the day before, and see how their flavor as a person changes it completely.
Yeah.
Then makes us realize, oh, like shit, so that's what casting's job is, but like times 1,000 when they get all those.
Yeah.
You're right.
Absolutely. I mean, everybody that does do the workshop is so very different. I mean, it's people of varying different ages. The scenes that we do on the workshops, which are the same ones still that you would have done with me, you know, we had such a brilliant 18-year-old actress doing, you know, M from James Bond, versus, you know, much older, more experienced actors and people from all different backgrounds and all different ethnicities. And it's so kind of, it really blows my mind sometimes how creative people can be and think, and, you know, interpretations that I never would have expected them to come up with. And so yeah, I mean, what Manuel has come up with is definitely, and, you know, all the feedback that the actors can give each other is so wonderful. You know, that encouragement, especially at the moment when things are so kind of dark and uncertain, it's really nice to have a community online for everybody to, you know, to work together, really, because it is work, you know, learning all that text and giving feedback on all these takes, you know, it takes up time. So I think it's great.
Well, you get to create every day for 5 days anyway, at least.
Exactly.
But it's that thing of the pressure's off. Like, we don't have that thing in our head of, oh, but there's a job at the end of like this audition. So you feel like you can just go for it more. And it's that weird thing of like, I'm intrigued, you know, if someone then did a self-tape for you for an actual job, would you like, do you sense yourself more? I'm just talking out loud as an actor, like you don't want to, but once that job's kind of on the line, it takes, I think, a lot of audition practice to just almost be okay with throwing away that attachment to the end result of,
Yeah.
I need to book this. Now, I don't know, like how, in your perspective, because you've seen the agency side too, what kind of advice would you give actors around that? Because I know a lot of people, especially starting out, have that I need the job kind of mentality, but then it's hard to do your best work when you're in your head.
Yes, totally.
Is it
I
just
mean,
experience? Is it just doing enough of them to have experience, or is there something more, do you think?
I think there is an element of experience. Yeah. I think when you've done the same way with kind of job interviews for anybody, really, it's like once you've done enough of them, you do start to sort of relax into yourself a bit more. I mean, don't get me wrong, not every self-tape that I've seen has been great. Sometimes people really do overthink something, which is, to me, kind of so simple. You read a script, especially for kind of smaller parts, for example. Sometimes people can read something and think, how can I put my own stamp on this? And actually it's like, look, do what's on the page to the best of your ability. And as I was saying the other day on the webinar that we did, directors want to direct actors. So give as much as you can in that self-tape, but I think you're going to be, if you're cast, a director is going to possibly want to change completely what you've done, but they've seen you, they like you, they see the potential in your performance, so it doesn't have to be perfect. It just needs to be solid, and it needs to be good, and it needs to make sense, and it needs to engage the person watching it. I think when people self-tape, I think, not doing it more than 3 times is probably something I would say. Do it 3 times and pick your favorite one, send it off, and don't think about it anymore, which I know is so easier said than done. There have been jobs that we've all desperately wanted and thought that we were great for and haven't got. And so it does happen, but as is the nature of what we all do, sometimes somebody will be cast, like the decision between 2 actors, it'll be such a fine line between 2 actors who are equally brilliant, but there's just something that draws the director more into somebody's performance, or the way they look, or any of those things. So yeah, I mean, just get it done, not too many times, and don't think about it ever again. Is what I would say.
Yeah, I think it's that thing of, also knowing that there'll be another one. It's like,
Yeah,
it's not your one shot.
exactly.
It's not an Eminem song where lose yourself actually means you've only got one shot. That was
Exactly.
a really cheesy segue to bring that in there, but I'm so weirdly happy that I did that.
Any excuse to mention Eminem?
Not
Definitely.
really, just any excuse to say something that had nothing to do with the context of what you said. No, I agree. I think also, I wonder how much of that has to do with knowing storytelling deeper than just your role as, because I think that thing of the smaller parts, like you said, is super important. Like you just have 1 or 2 lines. And I know sometimes, especially having been in different classes, sometimes certain classes will say, like, you have to make it your own. But the 1 line barista doesn't need to like have a backstory about like his wife having an affair. Like
No.
that doesn't serve story. Would you do you think it's a good thing for actors to learn about just basic storytelling and writing and sort of the story arc holistically? Or do you think that it's enough to just get out of your own ego and realize that you're a one-liner? And
I mean, it depends, doesn't it, on the scene, and it depends on the character, and it depends on the line. It depends on the dialogue and what it is that you're saying in that particular scene. If you're saying yes please sir to somebody asking you a question, no, probably not. Whereas if you've got that bit more to do, I think you have to kind of use your, there's a lot of kind of common sense, I suppose, that comes into it, but also I feel like the more I read and the more I watch, the better my critique, I suppose, becomes. And I suppose to any, young actors, I would say watch as much as you can, watch NT Live, watch films, watch TV. then you get such a better sense of all of these things, you know. And theatre for me, having not gone to drama school or seen a whole lot of theatre when I was younger, having spent the last kind of 10 years of working in this industry, really going all the time, I've learned so much more about the art of acting and what works and what doesn't. And I think it's really important for everybody, for all of us, to keep on top of that sort of thing. But you know, I guess you have to use your own judgment, I guess, on those sorts of things. But you know, the casting director, normally if you're in the room together, will tell you if it's too much and to rein it in, or say, you know, if they're a good casting director, hopefully give you a bit of direction and try and encourage you to think about it maybe a slightly different way.
Yeah, that's interesting. I was going to be sort of I guess a follow-up point, because obviously in the room, whenever we can do that again,
Yeah.
you guys are there to kind of guide us, and I guess many times you have had notes from the director perhaps, so you sort of know loosely how to steer us into a certain direction.
Yeah.
And I guess, you know, that doesn't mean that we're doing something wrong. It just means that you kind of know where to nudge us to. That's great, because we know that you're there to kind of help us through the process, and we can just collaborate and jam.
Yeah.
Self-tapes. We don't have you there.
No.
We've got 3 takes, like you say, just kind of don't do 150 because you're going to go nuts trying to pick one.
Yeah.
So what is that then? Like, what is that self critique, I guess, you can do with the script? Is it, I guess, because we don't know the context like you do. We don't know the director's notes unless we've had it in the breakdown. Is it really just go through everything that you've been sent in those sides, every single aspect of it, and really understand what you think a strong choice is going to be for you, and just go all out for it and trust that? Or
I think if you're ever in a situation where you're thinking, do you know what, I'm totally all out of ideas with this, I don't know what works, I don't know, you know, we've all been in those situations. You know, normally, always, if we've had notes from a director, I would pass them on when sending the material for a self-tape, you know, always, because of course you want the actor to do their best possible work, and you want to give people the best possible shot. But sometimes, you know, directors don't give us all that much to go on, and I think maybe sometimes they're still figuring out a character, or they want somebody to bring something to the part that, you know, inspires them, I suppose. And so, you know, in the absence of notes, I think you go with your gut instinct, and like you say, don't go 150%. You know, leave enough space for maneuver and for the director to see that bit of potential there for playing around with the part, and go with that. I mean, you know, it's very difficult, and as we've seen, everybody interprets things in completely different ways. You know, we all watch TV all the time and have completely different opinions about what it is that we're watching, and the actors and all the rest of it. So yeah, I think you go with your gut and what you feel works, and kind of hope for the best, really.
is your gut telling you that self-tape's kind of going to be the big thing now moving forward, at least as a sort of first entry point? Or no idea?
I think they have been for such a long time, especially on, so Debbie, so she's worked on Bond films for 30 years now, and obviously when she started out, there was none of this self-taping technology, and so the director would have to be in the room with you, you know, when you met people, and that's obviously always preferable for us. But now, I mean, I think it's because everybody's based all over the world, and you know, sometimes actors that we really want to meet are filming something and they quickly manage to squeeze a self-tape in between scenes or whatever. I mean, it's so convenient, and also from a casting director's point of view, you can filter people out quite quickly in a self-taping situation, whereas obviously auditions take a lot more time to organize, it's a lot more admin, it's a lot more expensive as well, obviously, because you need to hire studios. So, you know, certainly since I started out doing this job 6 years ago, I mean, the office was very much in the throes of self-tapes and receiving a lot of self-tapes to then go through. But it's a shame, because ultimately it's always so much more of a joy to meet somebody and get a sense of who they are and their physicality and all that kind of stuff that you don't get when you're just receiving a self-tape. So yeah, but I think, you know, especially like you say now, I'm sure it's very much going to continue on the self-taping path, unfortunately.
I guess, and then maybe bring in people for callbacks in person, perhaps, if it's a smaller
Yeah.
list that you can kind of contain a bit more and
Yeah,
go
I
from
hope
there.
so. I hope so, yeah.
That's a question, I guess, on callbacks and stuff, just generally, forgetting the technical side of in-person or self-tape. People will do their first read, and obviously if you get a callback, you guys have seen something in it that you like enough to bring them back in. Now, there's that dichotomy then that you could maybe fall into as the artist, to then go, do I just try and replicate what I did first time as best as I can? Or do I come in and do something different? Or have they given me notes that maybe, like, what's your advice? I guess it depends on the situation, but what's your advice for an actor there when they've got a call back? Is it try and do it first time around as best as you can, because that's what kind of got you into the race?
Well, I mean, it depends, to be honest. I mean, in my experience of recalls and callbacks, I mean, it tends to be that the director is just really intrigued by a handful of actors, and he just wants to see them face to face, kind of an opportunity for them to kind of him or her to size them up, and just figure out if they get on as well. If you're filming on a project for several months, you want to know that you're going to be able to work together, that you like each other, and that, I mean, it's not always necessarily to like each other, but to know that it's somebody that you can collaborate with and who takes direction well. So many actors, unfortunately, aren't brilliant at taking direction. So many people will prepare a scene but be so sort of stuck in their way of doing it, and sometimes, and also, I think nerves come into play in that situation too. But we've had people be recalled in the past, and the director sort of tried to help them get to a better place with a scene and with a character, and some people just haven't been able to deliver with that, whereas other actors have been brilliant at taking direction and have really been able to respond to a director's suggestion on different things and different outlooks on a character. So I think when you're recalled, normally we would obviously always tell you if there was anything in particular that the director wanted to see. Normally, we'll say, please prepare the same scene again that you did with that first tape, or, the director actually just wants to chat with you. And in that instance, obviously, as an actor, I think it kind of goes without saying that you really prepare for that recall, in the sense that you research your director, their work, the project really well, you come armed with questions, you really want to be, as we always say in our office, interested and interesting. You want to be put forward the best version of yourself, and really take a really big interest in the project, and encourage the director to want to be interested in you too. So yeah, I hope that kind of answers the question.
I think so. I think ultimately it's, you guys are working with humans too, and we need to be able to come in and show the human side, and it's not like that weird sort of, school teacher, school kid dynamic where you're there to just be a good boy or good girl. It's more that you're there to create and collaborate. And if you can't show that, then you're wasting everyone's time, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
With projects, I guess, that are pilots, for example, like some of the stuff you might have been working on where there is no previous context of what the world is like. I'm not talking just callbacks, I'm talking generally now. We don't know what the world is, and there's no real information bar what's on the sides. What would you recommend actors do in terms of trying to get some idea of how to understand what the tone of the show might be? Is that researching the director's past work and kind of understanding their body of work, or is there anything else that...
So do you mean when you just get the sides but you don't get the full script, and you're like, how does this fit into the context of what's going on?
I suppose either that or just it's a pilot, right? So you're casting a pilot. There's no show that's ever existed before, so we don't know what the tone of the show is because it doesn't exist yet. So
yes.
I guess
thinking about Game of Thrones, maybe when they first got that episode, their sides, they would have thought, we've never seen anything like this before. Yeah.
So I mean, with that, I guess they had the books as source material, or you might go, oh, Lord of the Rings, fine. Yeah. But you could think something like Mr. Robot as an example. If you ever saw Mr. Robot,
no, I haven't. No. But I would love to.
It's great, but if you watch it now, it might scare you because it's probably too close to what's.
Oh, really?
It's one of those where it's, like the cyber hacker, it's a brand new showrunner. No one really knows what he's done before.
Mm-hmm.
So how, you can't picture what the tone's going to be, what kind of
Yeah.
camera shots they're going to do. What kind of maybe more nuanced research or digging work do you think an actor could do to help them just get a picture for themselves?
Well, so I don't work on anywhere near as much TV as I would love to. So pilots, obviously, for us, are not something we're as familiar with. But when I worked for 6 months for Nina Gold in her office, and she was working on various different projects at the time. So there was Game of Thrones, there was the Star Wars films, and hopefully this kind of relates to your question if it's slightly indirectly, but the actors who came in for Star Wars, for example, only got maybe 3 pages of script. And it was I think it was possibly for, when I was working for her, it might have been the Daisy Ridley role that they ended up casting. So, so many fantastic actresses came in, and they came into Nina's house where she works, and were given these 3 pages, and were given as long as they wanted to prepare these sides. You're kind of very much on the spot, having to come up with something that's hopefully original and that the directors are going to enjoy. And I think it's very difficult in that situation, because you're pressured and you're nervous anyway, and that your time there is reasonably limited. I think it's a really, really difficult thing to give advice on, because all of us creatively work very differently. I mean, for me, I suppose I always think about other actors whose work I've really been inspired by, or decisions that they've made when it comes to roles that have been really controversial or unusual or against type. For us as casting directors, it's always such a joy to see somebody cast very much against type, and not somebody that you would expect to be cast in a role. And so I guess trying to sort of think outside the box enough, whilst also kind of maybe not veering too far from what's on the page. I know it's a really hard question, and I'm sure that there are other casting directors who might be able to articulate it in a much better way, but it's really difficult. Pilots and stuff, when you have so little material to go on, it is so difficult. And as casting directors and directors too, often you might not watch somebody's tape for that long before you've made a decision about them. So I think just giving enough in that first sort of 30 seconds of something, whether it's a self-tape for a pilot or a film or whatever it is, to keep the director and the casting director engaged, that's really, really key. And also, if you have the time and you can, getting your fellow actors or whoever it may be to watch it back and give you that bit of feedback, as we've seen with Manuel's brilliant course, having that feedback is so invaluable. Getting other actors to help you see something in a slightly different way or make a suggestion, I think all of that is really helpful. But I appreciate that it's difficult, when you've got so little to go on. It's just like, could this be right? Could it be completely wrong? Sure. It's tricky. It's really tricky.
And I think I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of people and kind of ask questions that maybe would come to mind. And then it's almost that thing of, that probably wasn't a very nice question to ask you, because there isn't an answer to it. But I think that's also the thing with the industry and being a creative, that, like you said, it's so subjective that everybody's opinion is different. That's the kind of the beauty of it, and also, I guess, the frustration of it.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we've been sat in a room with the director and watched a tape that I personally thought was terrible, but the director has been like, God, I really love that. I never thought about the role in that way. And I'm thinking, oh my God, like that was I nearly didn't show you that tape. I thought it was so terrible. It's so, exactly like you say, subjective, and you never know. We all have our own tastes, and there have been actors in the past I've been so excited to put their body of work in front of a director or a producer, and the director or producers has been like, not really that interested by it.
That's interesting for an actor to hear, though, because that means that you obviously have people that resonate with your tastes.
Yeah,
that might
absolutely.
not resonate with another office's tastes, which is totally fine, totally normal.
Yeah.
Just for anybody that might get triggered, which is the word of the day right now. But also the fact that, just because one director you're working with or producer doesn't like your suggestion of someone you like, I suppose doesn't mean that person has zero chance of something down the line on another project of yours where a director will go, oh no, yeah, I vibe that person too. And
Totally. And sometimes, you know, there have been many occasions where the director has sort of come back around to your way of thinking. You know, sometimes, especially when you're working on something that's big budget and that you've seen loads of people for, you know, there'll be people, especially because for the casting director, you've been in the room with all these actors, so you know who you really engaged with in the flesh, whereas as a director and producer is normally just watching a tape, having known nothing about that person, having not had a bit of a chat with them and found out a bit about their preparation and who they are and their story and all the rest of it. So we have the benefit of that experience prior to, you know, doing the audition, which obviously makes quite a big difference for us. But you know, when we've worked on things where we've had to see lots of people, and there have been actors who right from the beginning we've really liked, you know, it's really nice when actually, you know, towards the end when a decision still hasn't been made and we're like, come on, like these three actresses are fantastic, look at them again, and the director's like, oh, okay, and then, you know, before you know it, they've selected one of the people that you were really passionate about to begin with. So that's really nice when that happens.
That must be one of the really rewarding parts of the job, right?
Yeah.
Especially when you fought for a while over somebody and you kind of get that. I don't want to call it a win because that sounds like the wrong word, but
it feels like a tiny victory.
It feels like a tiny victory in your personal Olympics of casting.
Exactly.
Cool. So I see people are in the waiting room. So what I'm going to do is give you a break from me. And then
great.
If there's time at the end, I might circle back to some of the questions that I didn't get to and go from there.
Go ahead.
I forgot who I promised to bring in first. So I'm just going to bring in anyone.
Great.
My German side clearly isn't working today. Please planning out the window. Hello, Alex.
Hello.
How are you?
Hi, Alexandra.
Hello, I'm well, thank you. How are you two? You both okay?
Good, thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Good. Thank you for having me on, Ashley.
Pleasure. I'm going to shut up and I'm going to hand you over to the capable Jemima and let you guys have a good old chat.
Thanks.
Go ahead.
Thanks for coming on, Jemima. Much appreciated.
Oh, not at all. It's really fun. It's nice.
How's your lockdown been? Well?
It's been okay, thanks. You know, extreme highs and extreme lows. And I finally started a diet, so things are vaguely going in the right direction now. But how about you?
It's been all right, you know, to be honest. Like, I mean, like you said, highs and lows, but I've been very lucky. Like, it's been a very sort of smooth sailing lockdown, so I'm very, very lucky and very appreciative of it. So yeah, it's been quite nice. Can't really complain. Looking forward to normality resuming.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And hanging out with friends. I volunteer with a hospice, and we did a virtual festival the other day for some of the patients, and we were looking at pictures of previous festivals that we'd been together at, and you know, seeing everybody with their arms around each other, you think, oh my god, do you remember when we used to put our arms around each other and like be in these compact type festivals? And it was quite emotional seeing all those pictures.
Like an alternate world, doesn't it? It's mad.
It really does. It really does. But have you been working at all, or what have you been up to?
So I've been furloughed.
Okay.
So yeah, I've just been getting paid to not do anything. It's been
Great.
lovely.
Furloughed from what? What's the job
so
that
I'm
you
in
do?
hospitality, so just like bar and waitressing. So yeah, it's not like I've had any work to do while I've been at home. So I've just been able to actually focus on other bits, which has been really nice, like acting stuff and writing stuff. Like honestly, I've actually met more people in a lockdown than I ever met when everything was normal. So yeah, it's actually really nice. Problem is, like, obviously because it's hospitality, he's not sure when we can reopen. It's just a sort of waiting game, and then when we do reopen, you'll probably only be able to have like 50% capacity in because of social distancing and stuff. So yeah, it's all just a waiting game at the minute, but we'll see.
Oh, well, what a good situation to be in though, and to be able to, you know, look more into acting and like you say, forming more of a community. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's been really nice. And then Ashley does stuff like this, so we can come on and it's great.
Hey, I'm with you. This is like my best networking of my life has been during a pandemic, which is really weird.
Isn't it?
No, it's good to bring people together and give people a chance. I know there was all the spotlight one-to-ones have been happening, and Jemima does Manuel Piro stuff, and We Audition's been doing lots of stuff, and people in the casting community have been amazing. But demand and supply is very, very lopsided. Like, there's a massive demand. Like, spotlight one-to-ones, it's worse than
like that.
It's worse. Like, it's worse than Live Nation or Ticketmaster gig
Really?
tickets. Oh yeah. Like,
I didn't do any of those Spotlight one-to-ones, but was it really just massively
Oh
oversubscribed
my
and
god,
people were
they would
desperate
be
to?
gone within like 40 seconds. They'd just be
Oh no.
like,
I was
yeah.
lucky to nab one in the first few weeks, but I don't think it was known about. And even then, it was like I had 2 browsers open, copy and paste, like super. You
Oh
gotta go.
no.
You gotta go quick. Like, I've got gig tickets much more sort of stress free than that.
Yeah. Oh my god, like seeing Beyonce. That's crazy.
Yeah, exactly. You guys in the acting
God,
world are
Beyonce.
much more in demand than Beyonce. So there you
He's
go.
not even
Well,
lying.
you know.
You actually are. You actually are.
So now
Oh
Alex can
god.
meet you and have a question for you and kind of get some time finally with a casting person.
Oh, bless
God.
you.
Yeah, it was just like a few. I know you've been asked them all before, but
No, but please go ahead. That's what we're here for.
it was just like a couple of questions. I know time's a bit limited, but in terms of when you're casting, because I'm in a position where I'm relatively new to it, as in I don't have loads of credits on my Spotlight. Like, my show reel isn't full of like loads of professional stuff, and I didn't ever like formally train. A lot of my training has been from evening classes and weekend classes and stuff like that. So when you're looking to bring someone in, what is it that you look for that makes you think, you know what, they haven't got loads of stuff, but let's see them and let's bring them in? Is there something specific that really needs to stand out for you, or is it literally just all down to the look of your photo?
I mean, for me, I'm very, obviously we get so many CVs submitted to us sometimes, and if an actor doesn't have something I can watch, and it doesn't have to be a professional looking show reel at all, even if it's just a monologue that kind of suits you really well and is the sort of character you really like to play, that is invaluable. I mean, I just, I don't care if you've only got 2 photos or 1 photo, but as long as there's something I can watch of you, that for me is really, really helpful. And I think especially, with projects that we work on, which there'll be so many submissions for, if I can't watch something of somebody and my time is quite limited, I'm less likely to probably invite them in for an audition. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm sure lots of other casting directors work really differently, and maybe they might think, oh, from that photo that looks interesting, but as we all know, there's so little that you can actually tell from a photo, and you want to hear somebody's voice, you want to get a sense of their physicality, and so I would strongly recommend, if that's not something that you currently have, asking a friend or somebody who's got a great as best a quality camera as possible, to film you doing a monologue that you really like, and adding that to your Spotlight, and also just making sure that your Spotlight page is really, really up to date, really clear. Make sure it says where you're based, if you can have a base elsewhere, where that might be, all your skills, all that sort of thing, just making sure that it's really clear and up-to-date information. I'd say that's, we're often so pressed for time with submissions, so just making sure that all of that looks really good and is accurate is really important.
Okay, amazing, thank you. And then in terms of like self-tapes, because obviously with a self-tape you can get a scene and then you drive yourself mad because you're like, oh, there's so many different ways I could do this. Are you happy to receive like 2 different versions, or do you just want one version of that tape?
Yeah, I mean, I personally, again, other casting directors might possibly work differently, but if somebody sends in their self-tapes and says, look, I have tried this 2 very, very different ways, I will always try to make sure that I give both of those tapes the time. And normally what I'll do is I'll upload the one that I think is better, so that the director can watch it. But yes, absolutely, especially with some roles that seem kind of so open, and it's really hard to know where to sort of pitch yourself. I don't think there's anything wrong with submitting a couple. I mean, I would never do more than 2. I would just send 2, and obviously make sure that they're kind of different enough to make it worth sending in 2. But yes, absolutely, that's definitely something that I think is very reasonable to do.
Because obviously, like, in a room you can get redirected, but then with a tape you're like, is this completely away from what they want? Like, so, well, that's good if you're quite happy to receive go for different versions.
Definitely. It's a good idea. I mean, sometimes it's just so hard, isn't it? And also sometimes you might, you know, actors sometimes do something in an accent, but then think, oh, well, hang on, maybe this accent works better, or, you know, it's, and it can completely change the tone of a scene, you know, changing your accent or changing your look even, you know. I think it's some, and also from a casting director's point of view, you know, it can be quite enjoyable to see what a chameleon somebody can be with material. So yeah, absolutely.
Fab. That's good to know. And then are you quite happy for people to contact you? Because I know some people, they want to know different things. Like, it was so funny. I remember doing a workshop with like casting directors a couple of years ago, and they were like, if you get a new headshot, don't email me. Like, I'm not really that bothered. I was like,
yeah.
Okay. So, but then others say update us with everything. If you get a new headshot, if you get a new show reel, like, so what's your stance on that? Are you happy to get contacted, or would you rather it just be for really big things?
No, I mean, I'm so more than happy to be contacted if somebody gets new headshots, a new show reel, whatever it is, because you never know what that casting director might be working on at that time. And you know, there have been moments where we've been working on something and somebody's emailed me and it's come in at just the right moment, because I've been looking for something that, you know, perhaps I've been struggling to find, or, you know, I watched something on their show reel and, you know, we're looking for somebody that can horse ride and they can horse ride, and you think, okay, great, let's meet them. You know, I think it's always worth making the contact. You know, I think doing it too regularly might slightly start to grate on some people. Exactly. But normally, you know, I say to actors, check in with me 3 or 4 times a year, or like you say, if you've just done a big project that you're really proud of, or if you've just got some impressive new headshots that you want to share. You know, if you don't get a response from a casting director, it's not that they're not, you know, I always file everybody's submissions. So I've got, you know, an inbox that's quite big with lots of submissions, but I try and sort of file them in different locations so that I can look back, you know, in terms of age category or whatever it might be. And granted, not everybody works like this, but I find it quite helpful. And I think it's just, you know, especially when you've kind of met somebody or they've sent in a self-tape before, you know, it's nice to be able to keep them in the back of your mind. So I think, yeah, absolutely, email away. You know, you might not get a response, but it's not that they're not keeping your name somewhere.
For sure. And this is my last one, actually, I promise. I won't keep you any longer. In terms of, you've obviously worked on like such a range of stuff, like shorts, commercials, films, TV. Do you have a preference for what you prefer casting, and does the process wildly differ across all of them, or are they all fairly similar in terms of process?
Well, so I prefer to work on films, even though obviously financially it's not as fruitful. It's really nice working on very low budget films, because actually creatively it's much more interesting. You know, you can put forward to the director actors that they have no idea who they are, and, you know, they're just people that you've seen and you think are great, and it's not all about getting a big named actor to get the film off the ground. You know, low budget films will kind of go ahead no matter who the cast is. Whereas the problem is, on a lot of films that we work on now, we come on board in the kind of development stages. So a producer will come to us and say, right, well, if you can get us Idris Elba, we can make this film. Okay. Of course, Idris Elba is busy for the next 10 years and is never going to be available for a super low budget film where he doesn't know the director and there's not all that much money. And that's very frustrating, but that seems to be the case with a lot of projects these days. Is, you know, producers come to casting directors and want them to help attach these big cast names to get the financing for these projects to happen. And that's quite frustrating, and it can be very slow. And there are so many brilliant scripts out there that never get made as a result, because there are these distributors who want these huge names to get the film off the ground, which is a real shame. And in my opinion, if you made that film for $1 million, with a brilliant cast that aren't famous, you know, you'd have a fantastic film and maybe it would go somewhere. So that can be quite frustrating. I mean, the thing with commercials is it never normally has to be a name. And the same with short films. You know, you can kind of select actors to audition or self-tape who you just really like, which is also great. You know, I've worked so much with the NFTS, who what's so nice about them all is that they're not tainted by the industry yet. You know, they're very sort of new to it and excited, and when they start seeing actors audition tapes, they're really excited by that. You know, they're suddenly inspired by these actors who, you know, they've never come across before, and you know, it's a very creatively interesting process working with people who are very new to this. So I've absolutely loved working on the short films with them, and you know, the NFTS is so, they're all trained to such high standards there, that the films that come out of working with them can be fantastic and go to festivals, and so that's really nice. I mean, ultimately you just want to work with a producer and a director and a team who it feels really collaborative with, and who you feel are going to really listen to your opinions. You know, casting directors, you're paid for your opinion, that's why you're brought on, and that's why casting directors work a lot with certain directors more than once. You know, the director likes their tastes, like they like their way of thinking, they like the people that are put forward to them. So it's, you know, I guess a meeting of minds. You want to make sure that you're working in a team where you feel like your opinion is really respected, and where you can feel like you can put people forward and you know, introduce interesting actors to a team, as opposed to them being like, if it's not Idris Elba, then we can't make this film, which can be really boring.
Yeah, cool. Thank you. I promise that was all of them. I won't keep you any
So
longer.
nice to speak to you, Alexandra. I really like your green hair, by the way. Is that a temporary?
It's a lockdown choice, yes.
Amazing.
But I quite like it, so you never know.
You know what that means?
Great.
New headshots.
I know. This is why
New
I
headshots.
before lockdown, because I was like, I ain't got the money for that. But lockdown, I'm like, sod it.
Fair enough.
Oh, it looks great. I love it.
Thank you. Might keep it, you never know. But yeah, thank you so much, guys, like for having me on and for chatting to me. Really,
So nice to meet you.
You too. Thanks, Jemima. Thank you, Ashley.
No problem.
Bye.
Pleasure.
See you later.
Bye. Oh,
Aw.
amazing. Bless. She was
So
saying,
lovely.
I reached out to her agent because her agent, do you know Claire Robinson? She used to work with Dan Hubbard.
No, I
she's
don't know her.
She's moved up to Leeds, which is where I'm based, and she set up an agency. And she literally, before launching, lockdown hits. But she said some of her actors were struggling to get these one-to-ones, and so it's nice to kind of bring her on and get
absolutely
her to connect. Right. Let me bring in a few more. Well, let me bring in the next person.
Great.
Clara, wonderful. I know Clara from class from many moons ago, but she's great.
Nice.
Hello,
Clara.
Oh,
Hi.
I love how unprepared you were for that.
I'm so unprepared. Absolutely so unprepared.
That's amazing. Oh, am I on?
Oh God, don't. I was feeling a bit like that in the beginning, because literally this is my pants drawer just there, and it was open and everything was, and I was like, okay, just slowly close.
I had a little bit of time, but okay, make sure my couch is okay.
Is that what that was, Jemima? I didn't notice. That was really like, it's smooth, but this is live streamed, so I can edit anything out. You're fine.
Thank goodness.
Don't worry.
How are you though, Clara?
I'm doing good, thanks. How are you guys?
Good.
Good.
Okay, whereabouts are you?
I'm in Northwest London in West Hampstead at the moment. In this tiny flat stuck with my husband, where I've been for the past, I don't know how long, it feels like forever.
Oh God,
but I'm originally from the States, so that's where the accent comes from as well. Like same
nice.
Canada, so different.
When did you come over to the UK?
10 years ago.
Okay, and what spurred the decision?
I originally came here to study. I did a business, it was a cultural and creative industries degree, and went straight into the corporate world, worked at a couple of media companies and stuff like that, did the whole marketing thing, and then decided to move into being more creative and development and production and all that stuff. So.
Oh, great.
Yes. So should I ask my question?
Go for it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I had time, so I wrote it down. So I guess it's a question kind of like in light of like the current climate and everything that's going on in the world today. But like as a Black actress, I find sometimes that like the industry doesn't know what to do with me a lot, you know, in terms, I'm in my 30s, I'm from a different country, and a lot of times I get asked to play you know, or the roles that come through are not really like my brand and my type, and I kind of feel a little bit lost. And I'm sure a lot of people from a lot of different minority backgrounds or people who have disabilities or that sort of thing kind of have the same type of things that come up right now. But I guess my question is, like, what do you think are the steps that we should be taking from the casting perspective and from the actor's perspective to kind of create real change right now? Because I think there's a lot of lip service being paid to diversity and inclusion and Black Lives Matter, and all those things are really great and important, but what are the practical things that we can be doing both on the casting side for in your profession and then on my side as well? So yeah.
I mean, you know, I'm not sure that I'm necessarily entirely qualified to answer so much of that question, but I mean, I guess I would give the same answer to anybody perhaps that's feeling a bit like, you know, look, I'm not really getting invited in for the roles that I necessarily feel are right for me, and that I'm just not, you know, I guess, could you mind me if I ask you an example? Like, has something come in particular that you've been a bit like,
it's not anything in particular. I think it's more, kind of over time, over the past kind of 5 years that I've been acting, there've been a lot of really great roles, kind of few and far between, and they kind of, as it often happens, you know, you kind of see the same people kind of getting rotated through certain things, and then there's, you know, a role that's great, and then it's just like, but it happens less often for people of color oftentimes. But yeah, I think it's more like, should we just be like hustling to like get in with those top agents so we can be on those lists? Is it that we need to just be creating our own work right now? Like what?
I think, you know, a combination of everything, really. I mean, in terms of trying to get a top agent, I mean, I think if the agent that you have right now is championing you and is putting you forward for the kinds of projects you want to be put forward for, and you feel is representing you in the kind of way that you want to be represented, then that's great. You know, I think a lot of actors run the risk of going to these big agencies but kind of falling to the bottom of the pile, because obviously so many of these big agents have such massive names, and those names are the people that take up the most time, and it's only the assistant that you ever end up speaking to on the phone. And I think, you know, that's not something, if I was an actor, that I would want. You know, I'd really want to feel like I could speak to my agent about things if I needed to, and not that there's anything wrong with speaking to an assistant, of course, and more often than not they're the ones doing the lion's share of the work, as I know very well. But you know, it's still, you want to feel like you're being looked after, and you know, there are so many brilliant agencies out there, and your relationship with your agent is so important. So I think making sure that you have somebody who's putting your hat into the ring for the right projects is really important. I mean, I you know, the way that we work is that we're extremely open-minded when it comes to casting. You know, we really try and make sure that, you know, you're considering as many people as possible when you're thinking about a role, and from so many different backgrounds and diversities and all the rest of it, because that's what's interesting for us. You know, I want to watch television that's diverse and interesting, and you know, I'm sick of seeing the same people on TV all the time. You know, I'm so over so many people's faces, I can't tell you. But you know, and I think creating your own work, absolutely. You know, if there are people that you know that you can collaborate with and write with, and perhaps, you know, you make a short film together or whatever it is, and you've got that up on your spotlights, that's also fantastic and really helpful. You know, I really hope that post everything that's happening at the moment, there are a lot more opportunities for diverse actors in the industry, and that people are much more aware of the limitations that have gone before, and the restrictions, and so I really hope that is a change that we see. But I think, you know, if you feel like there are roles that are coming up that you're just like, look, this isn't me, this isn't the kind of thing I want to be doing, that's a conversation that you must have with your agent. But also, as I was saying to Alexandra just now, you know, making sure that your spotlight page is a really good representation of you, and you know, whether it's it's having a clip from some work that you've done, or a self-tape that you're really proud of, that you feel is kind of really representing the kinds of characters that you feel that you're really good at playing. Having those sorts of things there is so helpful, because it just means that a casting director can watch something and kind of get inspired by what you're doing. And so yes, I mean, I hope that answers your question. I mean, it's such a kind of it's not a challenge that I've ever come up against myself, obviously. So it's difficult, and when you're an actor, obviously it's such an individual, it's such a niche line of work, which is difficult to navigate sometimes, especially with everything that's going on at the moment. So yeah, I mean, collaborating with the kind of people that you want to work with, and really keeping on top of projects that, watching stuff that you like and really appeals to you. Just keep, like with everybody, I think at the moment, keeping yourself really educated and open-minded, I think is really important.
I think now is the time to kind of create some groundwork with people, just collaborating and doing projects, like as soon as things kind of feel safe again, to just make stuff. And that's
absolutely. That's and doing, so Ashley and I met on this course that a casting director called Manuel Puro has set up.
Yeah, I've done that one. So, I've done some of those casting ones as well. I love it.
And they're fantastic. And it's such an amazing opportunity for people to kind of meet, but also, obviously give feedback on people's tapes and everything, and doing as much of that. Obviously finance is permitted and time permitted, because, not everybody has the time, but doing as much of that as possible, I think is really helpful as well.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
I hope that answers your question.
I was just going to say, I guess with the industry thing though, just the question there, Clara, is like, I don't even know if it's a casting or actor question. Like, it goes probably more to like, who are the writers and producers getting the opportunity in the industry? Because like, if the writing isn't there for the Black community as much, or the Latin American community, or whatever community it is, then you don't have the authentic voices coming through enough to then come to casting, to then come to people like yourself. Obviously, I guess a CEO of a company in a show could be, if it's nondescript, could be anybody.
Yeah.
But if we're talking like, where's the Jordan Peels of the world en masse to create more Get Outs? Well, that's maybe where the shift needs to happen, that we need more people talking about that. And until that happens, I guess to Jemima's point, you're probably in a better place to write that kind of content for yourself than wait.
Yeah.
And
we've seen it with so many actors. I mean, I know obviously she's white and quite posh, but Phoebe Waller-Bridge, for example, she wasn't getting any of those roles that she wanted to play, and she writes her own incredible sitcom, and now look at where she is. And I think there are a lot of actors who have started to do that more so, lots of actors who aren't being cast in the sorts of roles that they think they're worthy of, or that suit them, or any of that sort of thing. I think you kind of have to create your own creative bubble, I suppose, where you're able to play around with so many different characters and different material and different stories. And I know it's easier said than done sometimes. I think we all try to be creative all the time, but it's not necessarily always easy.
Write your own film. And
Exactly. Just film it. It'll be fine. BAFTAs, here we come. Of course that is not possible, but I think it's just playing around and seeing what works and what doesn't, I think is really is helpful for all of us.
Yeah. Perfect. Thanks so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right.
Awesome.
Best of luck,
Thanks,
Clara.
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah, it's a tough one. It's a tough conversation to have.
It is really tough.
Across the board, though. Like, it's so many different groups of so many different people. But then at the same time, it's like, wait, let's be careful that we're not seeing each other as so different that we think that there's like a sort of us against them thing. Like,
of course,
we saw at the weekend with all those stupid riots and protests of different, and it's like, well, I don't want to get political, but it is that thing of like, at the end of the day, how can we create stories that gives equal opportunity to people from different areas to just get the platform? Someone from the Bronx can write about the Bronx better than me. I could write about it, but what the fuck? What do I know?
Of course, but I think it's not just about, it's not just about race, it's very much about gender too. I mean, I had a meeting about a job a few weeks ago prior to this happening, which was the worst meeting I've ever had in my career, because so me and my aunt read a script, and I didn't particularly love it. I mean, in my opinion, it was a kind of not very good version of a James Bond type film. It was very sort of action, and there were lots of men, and there were only 2 women in it, and they were both gorgeous, of course, and one was kidnapped and the other one was tortured, and I just felt a bit like, who wants to watch this kind of thing anymore? And we met the director and the producer, and they were both guys, but they weren't open-minded. They didn't want to even think about making any of these 15 male characters female, also thinking about kind of the diverse element. I mean, it was just such a painful meeting, because you just thought, well, how would we work together? You're not wanting to hear any opinions other than your own, and ultimately that's what casting directors are for, is to put forward opposing or diverse or different ideas that you might have thought about originally. And it was just, it's just so painful. I think if I ever read a script that I don't like ever again, I'm just gonna nip it in the bud there and then and think, you know what, no, I just don't want to work on this. Life's too short.
Life's too short. Exactly. Life is way too short. Right, 2 more people. So let me bring in Lois. I have no idea what time it is, but
oh, don't worry, it's okay.
Okay,
I'm not in a huge rush.
I'm
hoping my boyfriend's cooking me dinner.
Oh, in that case, I'll keep this going a bit longer.
Exactly.
Just so you can guilt him into it.
Absolutely.
Hello, Lois. How are you?
Hi, Lois. Hi.
Hi, how are you doing?
All good. All good.
How are you?
Good. Yeah, I'm good, thanks. Yeah, I'm good, thank you.
I'm going to shut up and let you talk to Jemima.
Essentially. Whereabouts are you, Lois? Are you in London? Are you elsewhere?
I was in London, but I'm quarantining with my parents in the northeast.
Oh, nice.
Like a really small seaside town, so that was quite nice to get away from the busyness of everything. Yeah, and so I've been lucky to be with my family. Yeah, are you both in London or are we?
I am. Yeah, southeast. Yeah. Where are you, Ashley?
I'm in Leeds.
Ah.
Cool.
Away from the big smoke as well.
Away from the big smoke, but close enough to be able to get down there when needed.
Yeah.
Which works.
Yeah, of course.
Aww.
Yeah. So I had a couple of questions, and the first one was I recently got signed in quarantine.
Congratulations!
Thank you so much. It was such a strange time, but yeah, I'm really grateful to have got signed. But I wanted to ask, how do you like actors to build a relationship with yourself? If I've just been signed, do you like actors to rely on their agent, or do you encourage them to self-submit and contact you directly? How do you kind of like that relationship to go?
I mean, I would never tell an actor to only rely on their agent. I think the only time I'm ever really going to hear from your agent is if you're being submitted for a particular role. Whereas obviously, you can email casting directors anytime yourself and just kind of familiarize them with your material. So I would definitely say, as I mentioned to somebody else earlier, emailing casting directors, well, certainly me anyway, 3 or 4 times a year is totally fine, and sending any updates that you're particularly proud of, whether it's like something you've just signed up to do, or a self-tape that you're particularly proud of that you've just done. Definitely reach out directly. That's completely fine, and I think, and I would hope that a lot of other casting directors would say the same too. And, just bearing in mind, you probably might not always get a response from everybody, but that's not because that they haven't looked at your email, and then that they're not thinking about it for other things when they come up, which is what I certainly always try to do, because it's always nice to most of the actors that email me generally are actors that I don't know, and that I haven't met. So it's nice to have a kind of whole new pool of people that you look to when you're thinking about projects. So yes, absolutely. I would say email casting directors directly. Tell them who your agent is. If you've got any materials or any pictures that you want to send, then absolutely do that. And then hopefully in a few months' time, when you've got a really amazing theatre job, or hopefully maybe sooner than that, when you've got like a TV role or something like that, emailing casting directors again and telling them that, I think that's totally fine, and something I would encourage young actors to do, and any actor to do.
Great. And just on the back of that, do you when casting sort of supporting roles in the bigger budget features, where you don't really have the criteria for named actors, when you can look for new talent, do you tend to look for that talent across the board of agencies, from the bigger agents to the lesser known agencies?
I do. I know not all casting directors work this way, but for me, because, you know, yes, we have worked on bigger budget things, but I've also worked on a lot of smaller budget things, particularly short films, for example. And when you're casting for when I've been casting for short films, I've massively widened the net. You know, I've kind of ticked all UK agents on Spotlight, so that, granted, you do get a hell of a lot of submissions, but it's great because it's actors that you don't know, and also, you know, some of the time perhaps actors that are slightly less experienced, so maybe more willing to do short films, because not everybody's up for the NFTS pay and all that kind of stuff. So yes, I mean, we do try to, definitely, when it comes to sort of roles where we can be a bit more flexible with who it is that we cast. It will only really be the leading parts that we sort of slightly limit our field of vision about who it is that we can think about.
Yeah,
and hopefully all other casting directors work the same way, I hope.
No, that's great. That's great. It's that's good. That's good news. I was hoping that might be the case, but I understand that sometimes certain projects have to meet criteria and they have to go for names. It's just if you're at that stage where you're breaking out, like how to, you know,
how best to kind of totally. But it's difficult because there are also so many agencies out there now. I mean, I get emails from new agencies all the time saying, oh, you know, please add us to your spotlight breakdowns, and there are just so many. So sometimes it can feel a bit like, you know, you put out a spotlight breakdown and suddenly there's this whole, you know, I remember something we worked on and we had like 800 submissions for one part, and I was like, I'm never going to get through 800 submissions. And in that instance, you know, I like it when agents or actors, if they've seen the breakdown, will email and say, you know, I've submitted myself for this, or, you know, I've submitted my actor for this, and I'm just flagging them up because I think they're great. You know, a lot of agencies make terrible suggestions, unfortunately, which is a real waste of casting directors' time. But, you know, if you see something and you think, actually, I think I'm fantastic for this, then always email a casting director, definitely.
Great, thank you.
Do you use anything, just out of interest, do you ever look on anything kind of for jobs? Like, do you ever look on, I'm trying to think of some of the things that the NFTS use, like Mandy, for example. Do you ever have a look on any of that kind of thing?
I do. I have Mandy. I can't say that I've actively used it. I've tend to stick to Spotlight, but
Fair
I think
enough. Okay.
if that was something that you recommended or that you thought was definitely worth my time, I think I would be doing that, because I want to be able to meet my agent and be doing more of the work, and then, you know, we've got that. I want to be doing more work than, you know, I want to be active. So,
being proactive. I mean, Mandy, I only know of because of the NFTS. So when, for example, they haven't worked with casting directors, they've used that as a way to find actors and advertise roles. So I know that I don't know how much is on there, don't get me wrong, and I don't know how regularly people post on there, but that is something that might be worth having a look at, and other platforms as well. I mean, I know that Ashley, you might know of other platforms perhaps that sometimes advertise parts or low budget stuff.
Mandy would be the one that you'd probably want to look at. Obviously you've got to get a premium membership to apply for the paid stuff.
Is it pricey? Is it expensive?
What is it, 20 something a month, or it's cheaper if you buy like an annual subscription. Right. I think they had like a discount during COVID time if you got the full year, but I don't know if that's still happening. Then again, they're not posting many paid jobs at the moment anyway, because we don't know what's happening.
Yeah.
But Mandy would be a good one. Shooting people used to be good, and then it's not really that good anymore for that jobs-wise. I would say Mandy. If you wanted to go into European platforms, there's eTalenta, but that's like
of course,
that's like the Spotlight equivalent for EU casting directors, which
it's just not as good as eTalenta is not as easy to navigate as Spotlight. I mean, Spotlight I think is a much more efficient system, which every casting director in the UK will use. And so yeah, I mean, that's probably you're looking in the right place completely. But if you did want to veer off and have a look somewhere else, Mandy definitely would be worth a go.
Yeah, definitely. I'll definitely look into that, because I found Spotlight to be very helpful. But I'm always looking for a way that, you know, I can, if there's anything
what else you can be doing.
Yeah.
How did you get signed, Lois? So did you just submit some materials to your agent? Have you met them like face to face, or?
I haven't met her yet. So Dan Hubbard posted on Twitter to say that his associate Claire was leaving to start up her own agency.
Ah, right. Yes. Okay. Actually, yeah.
So that was it was from Twitter, which blows my mind, because I've been writing to agents for about 10 years now, and it kind of to no avail. So I dropped my material on Twitter, and she saw it, and then we got in touch, and it's been great. Yeah, I'm really grateful. It's been fun. So
well, that's such a nice Corona story.
It is.
Yeah.
If it helps, I've met her. She's lovely.
Oh, great!
And I think that having worked with Dan for the 4 years or so, she knows her stuff, and she's going to be super eager to make some waves. So you're in good hands for sure.
Yeah, I'm really excited.
Yeah, absolutely. No, well, good for you. Congratulations, because you know it's so difficult for young actors at the moment. You know, I read an article in the culture section of the Sunday Times the other day about all these, you know, drama school students who are about to do their kind of final year showcase and hopefully get signed, and obviously then none of this happened, and you think, gosh, I wonder how it will all look for drama schools like once this all kind of hopefully blows over. We keep saying blows over, hopefully it will, but
it's the same for film schools. I have film school students that I've done projects with in the last few months before this, and final year ones that were waiting and looking forward to going into industry, and now they're like, we don't know what we're going into.
Absolutely.
So it's tough for those guys.
Oh, well, good for you. And have you, Lois, have you as yet, and obviously, you know, the industry is in a bit of a strange place at the moment, but have you got any self-tape? Has she got anything for you to do acting wise yet?
I haven't had any self-tapes yet. I've tried to get involved with the one-to-ones that have been going on. So so that's been a good use of my time. And I have representation in America, so I'm trying.
Oh wow, great!
Hopefully they're gonna meet soon. So that's exciting as well. So
amazing.
I'm looking, but I'm so excited to be taping again and auditioning again. You know, it's I think that'll be the way forward now. I think everyone, I'm not sure how much in-person auditions we'll be doing now, but I think it's a good time to,
have you been doing some self-tape kind of practice? Have you been doing anything? Great. Okay, that's perfect.
I've like invested in some proper equipment now. I've got like the lights and a backdrop and things that I can take down as well, because like when I'm traveling, I just want to be able to put it together and
do it anywhere.
Because I'm so used to like getting my phone and like balancing it like on a bookcase. I know it's about you and your work, but for me, I'm also like, it needs to look like
it needs to look good.
So I've been messing around with that a bit. And,
Great. Oh, well,
yeah.
good for you. So you're ready and waiting for when it all picks up again, which will hopefully be very soon for all of our sakes.
I hope so. Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, I'm really missing it. So hopefully soon.
Oh, well, it was so nice to meet you, Lois.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
Congratulations again on your agent.
Thank you. Thanks so much. I really appreciate your time. And both of you, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Have a good one, Lois.
Take care.
Thanks, you too. Bye.
Bye, Lois.
Bye.
Bye. Oh, so nice to hear a Corona success story.
Absolutely. Same agent as before, hence my airplane hand gestures.
Yes.
But it's there's been lots of really cool things happening. I think you have to put the positive spin on this whole weird period and stuff like that. And just, the general one-to-ones and time that casting have been giving to actors is kind of unprecedented. Like, I think it really has helped a lot of people demystify it, but also, like, for God's sake, we get to realize and remember that you're all humans, and like, just to remember the fact that we're not going into this big scary audition process with like a gatekeeper of Narnia. It's not that at all. And I think that's been a really helpful thing throughout.
Yeah, no, totally.
Right. Let me bring in the final person. I'm
Great.
sure you're sick of her face because you'll have seen her all last week on
oh, don't worry, I don't mind.
On if she's still hanging around. Oh, she is. Oh, that was awesome timing.
Awesome timing. Hello, Andrea.
Andrea, your audio's slowly connected.
Hi.
Hello.
I definitely will not be expected to be called on now. Hi.
Yeah, that was perfect timing.
I mean, a Beyonce moment. I had the fan machine going.
Excellent.
No, that was nice. I was about to say you outside, like, with a nice beach in front of you or something.
I wish. If only we could fly.
Whereabouts are you, Andrea? Where do you live?
I'm in Bedfordshire, so not far from London.
Oh, nice.
But I was in Spain for 6 years and I've come back here and it's nice and warm, which is quite nice.
Yes, thank goodness. What were you doing in Spain for 6 years?
I took a break from acting and I moved over there and worked in PR and marketing and events. So I worked in hospitality and for
great.
hotels. So
fantastic.
Yeah, come back because I really, really missed it. I had that itch. So come back into the wonderful world of acting.
Oh my gosh, that's a great time.
But you know what? It has been a really great time because it's been lovely to come back and not feel the pressure because everybody's in the same situation. So you there's lots of workshops online and lots of people networking and amazing things like this. Ashley, well done for the podcast. I think it's so I love listening to it. It's so informative and educational for all of us. So yeah.
Thank you. Didn't even pay you to say that.
You're right. But I know what you mean. It's nice. There's no, none of us have any sense of FOMO because there's nothing that we are missing out on ultimately. Nobody's going anywhere or doing anything. So you're right. And it's the perfect time to kind of learn and try out new things, and it will make us appreciate it all so much more when it comes back round.
Hopefully not for long. I wonder what's going to happen.
I know.
Sorry, Ashley, I feel like I've just been brought on in. Did you want me to ask a question?
Whenever you feel like it.
I've just stumbled in, like talking about a wind machine, gone totally off topic.
It sounds on brand for you, though, so it's good.
Okay, so let's ask some acting questions.
Do it.
Go ahead.
So you've worked on some amazing projects, but what I would like to know is what's been your favourite project to work on so far? And out of those, have there been a particular actor that you've brought in that you're most proud of, whether they're big or small, and how did you find them?
Oh gosh. So there's two films that I've worked on that I guess I enjoyed the most. The last film that we worked on was James Bond, which was my first, which was truly amazing, for so many different reasons, not least the fact that it's got such a gigantic budget, and anything that was needed was got, and the sets were incredible, the actors were incredible. That was all really, really exciting. And I guess the reason that it was so exciting was because it was so, we were free to think about almost any actor. You know, I remember when we wrote up the list in the beginning, when we were thinking about the role that Rami Malek played, you know, you were writing down the actors that you normally would only dream of casting, but you were actually able to consider them because it was James Bond, and the whole world goes mad for it. So that was really exciting. And I guess in terms of the casting on that, I mean, obviously a lot of the actors that were cast in the film are names, but the role that Leshawna Lynch has been cast in, who is this MI6 agent who's kind of very much Bond's rival in kind of every single way, you know, intellectually, physically, everything. That role for me was such a pleasure to find. You know, I have met so many fantastic actresses over the years who I was able to bring in for that part, and right from the beginning, Barbara Broccoli and Michael, the producer, and Carey said, you know, we want a diverse actress for that role. And I was like, oh my gosh, finally, you know, I've got this long list of actors, like brilliant Black actresses and Asian actresses who I've always wanted to audition for a role like this. So I met well over 100 actresses for that role, and that was not including all the self-tapes that we got in. So that was a really exciting kind of journey, I guess, and the role took so many twists and turns because the scripts changed so much, as it often does on big budget projects. You know, the first script that you get is rarely the scripts that you end up with. So in the beginning I met actors who I thought, God, they're so perfect for this, but actually the script kind of changed and the role changed. And so Leshawna, who we ended up casting, who was absolutely perfect for the part, in the beginning she wasn't one of the people who I initially thought, oh my gosh, that's who we'll end up casting. So that was a really exciting kind of casting journey to be part of. And the other film that we worked on that I really, really enjoyed was a film called The Rhythm Section, because we got to work with a director called Reed Morano, and I'd never worked with a female director before. And I'd seen The Handmaid's Tale, and I'd seen one of her films, and I thought she was so cool and edgy. And when we first met her, she has all these amazing tattoos kind of from her hand up to her elbow, and I was trying desperately to listen to what she was saying, but all I was doing was trying to figure out all these, because they're like doodles all over her arms. So all I was doing was really staring at all her tattoos. But she was such a joy to work with, and a super quick decision maker as well, which often, unfortunately, we don't get the opportunity to work with directors who make quick decisions, which can be a real nightmare. But she was very quick decision maker. She knew exactly what she wanted. And we got to go to Ireland and kind of see all the filming there, and see Blake Lively doing some of the action, and we cast a brilliant actor in that, who unfortunately ended up being cut from the final take, but an actor called Danny Mays, who now I think most people will know Danny Mays from his television appearances. But we were so excited to be able to cast him in something, because we'd watched his work for years, and he hadn't quite, now he's quite a bit more well known because he's in this series called White Lines, which is on Netflix. He's got quite a leading role in that, and he's done other bits of brilliant television. But at the time when we met him, he was very much kind of on his way up. But also for that film, I mean, before it was Blake Lively, we got to meet loads of young actresses for that role, and that was great. You know, I guess for me it's kind of all about the process. The joy is in the process, and in the joy of coming to understand what it is that a director really wants. You know, I think that in the beginning I've had such strong opinions about things, and then I've realized actually that it's been really nice learning and understanding all these different aspects of a project and a character that then form the role and who you end up having. So yeah, I mean, those have definitely been two, I think, of my real highlights of this job. But then similarly, it's so nice, I was just saying to the person before you, working with film school students who, you know, are so thrilled to be introduced to amazing unknown talent, and so casting all these short films for them with actors who they don't know and whose work I don't know brilliantly either, because they're not necessarily all that experienced or they haven't done a lot of professional work. That's really enjoyable too. How about you? Have you got any highlights?
My highlight, well, to be honest, because I took so many years off. Coming back here, it's almost like I'm starting afresh, because the whole scene seems to have evolved. Like when I was acting before, Spotlight had books and was black and white headshots, and now it's all in color, and I'm being introduced into the wonderful world of self-tapes, which I think is amazing to have that opportunity, because I'm guessing you can see more actors now for your projects. You were saying that you received self-tapes for the shows that you've cast recently. Like, how many self-tapes would you receive for a role, for example?
It totally depends. I mean, you kind of have the freedom in a way to request as many as you want. You know, sometimes we get so many submissions, and of those submissions I might select 20, because sometimes people suddenly become unavailable, or they read the material and they don't like it, or, you know, you kind of want to always request more than you know that you're gonna end up with, I suppose.
How do you know
because
sorry to interrupt, how do you know
sorry
when you're selecting, when you're like, right, I want to select 20, what is like that thing that says to you, right, let's just choose this one, this one, this one, this one, this one?
Well, I mean, I would always make sure I'd looked carefully at somebody's CV and their material before selecting. You know, sometimes you might only have 10 that you think look any good. I mean, I would never select an actor that I thought it was going to be a complete waste of mine and their time, you know, and sometimes it's not. Sometimes I guess 20 is a number I've kind of pulled from nowhere. You know, sometimes it might be way more than that, because there are so many people that you think look interesting for a role, and you're kind of, you want to see what they all come up with, and you want to meet them and you want to audition them. So, you know, it's time consuming, you know, asking people to self-tape, asking people to audition, it's time consuming on everybody's side. So you want to make sure that you're giving all those submissions, you know, you're giving them a lot of attention, so that you make sure that when you get the material sent in, it's from people who are right and who are interesting for that particular part. But, you know, rarely do we kind of flippantly ask anyone to tape. You know, sometimes I've had in the past, I remember sometimes actors have emailed me and they've said, oh, my friend was self-taping for this and I was reading in and I think I was really good for it, so I've taped. And sometimes I'm a bit like, oh God. But, you know, occasionally, sometimes somebody you think, oh yeah, you know, it's not a bad tape. Other times you're just kind of like, oh, for God's sake, I don't have time for this. But, you know, sometimes people, you know, are great and they are right for the part. But as we all know, sometimes roles that we think we might be right for, we're not.
Do you know how many of those you're going to get now that you've said that, Jemima?
Oh, don't. No, I would not
box.
recommend it. I would not recommend it. I think you have to be very brazen to do that. And not a lot of casting directors would welcome that at all. But, you know, it's probably happened a handful of times in my time of doing this job. And, you know, maybe one or two of those tapes has been worth considering. But I wouldn't recommend it.
Ashley actually read with me for a role of an androgynous samurai. Can you imagine, Ashley?
Did I get the part?
Did I get it?
Did I get it and I don't know?
Oh, amazing. Well, thank you so much. I don't know if you've got somebody else lined up. I don't want to take up too much of your time.
Awesome. Thanks, Andrea.
Yes, thank you. Really nice to speak to you again.
You too. I'm sorry I'm like wind machining. I'll put that back on.
No, not at all. I'm quite jealous. I'm like in a very airless space. I'm very jealous. I wish I had a wind machine or whatever, or a fan.
I love that I'm calling it that.
Yeah, it's like a small fan, isn't it? Let's be honest. Awesome.
Oh, well, lovely to see you, and best of luck with everything until until we can all meet again.
Oh, do I have to leave?
I'll evict you. I'm gonna kick you out. See you later, Andrea.
Bye.
Oh, bless.
Aww.
Amazing.
Such great energy. I love her.
She's great. Yeah. Yeah. Was it last week's? She was on last week's, I think, with you, wasn't she?
Yeah, last week. Yeah. No, she was in with a great group of people.
She's awesome. We met many moons ago now in LA when she was in her first stint in the industry.
Oh, wow.
And then, as she said, she's disappeared and come back, which I thought she was gone for good. So
yeah,
so good for her. Right.
I think it's good if you decide to come back. It means that you've really thought about it and it's what you want to do.
I hope she's thought about it.
Yeah.
I'm mindful of time, so I'm gonna sort of wrap this up. I guess I've got few very quick things that I want to run past you, and they're all non-super serious stuff. So the first thing is just to say,
of course.
Jemima, what are you watching? Like, what's your shows or movies that you're watching? Please don't say trashy stuff. Please say good stuff.
Oh, no. Please say really highbrow television. So I've just started, I know I'm a little bit late to the post, but I've just started Schitt's Creek, which I'm really, really enjoying. And I'd recommend to anybody. They're 20-minute episodes. So it's super short and sweet. And initially you're a bit like, what the hell is going on? But once you get into it, it's fantastic. I've also been watching some foreign films. So I watched a really fantastic film a couple of weeks ago, and I can't pronounce it in French very well at all, but the English translation is The Specials. And it's a film with Vincent Cassel and Reda Kateb, and they play heads of two different organizations in Paris who work with adults with autism. And they kind of take on various different cases of adults who've been rejected by all other institutions because they might be too violent or too volatile or whatever, but they take them on and kind of care for them, and the authorities in France are trying to sort of bring their organizations down because they feel like their methods are quite unconventional. But it's such an amazing, really moving film with a really incredible casting. There's a young actor in it who's autistic who is so amazing. So I watched that. What else have I been watching? Money Heist, which is a Spanish TV series. So we've been enjoying that. Have you watched all of the series? Oh my goodness.
Just finished it, and I remember when they did the first, because what happened is they did the first batch it wasn't on Netflix, it was just on Antena 3 in Spain. And like, I'm going to be brutally honest, Spanish TV hasn't always been the greatest. And it's got better. Like, films have been great. Almodovar and stuff have done amazing work. But TV when I was there, at least, it was very like telenovela style. It was a bit OTT. But that was great. And then Netflix picked it up and I think resuscitated it. And it just has become this global thing. But I got into it. Are you watching it with subtitles or are you watching it dubbed?
I'm watching it with subtitles. I can't stand dubbed television or anything, dubbed anything.
I had it on and I put it on and it was dubbed for the first 5 minutes without me realizing. God. And I thought, wait, what is this? And no, just put it on Spanish, get that off. It was where are you? What season?
No, terrible. So I'm only in the first season because the problem is that I watch, and my boyfriend finds this very frustrating, we watch too many different things at once. So we take a bit of a slow pace. But is it worth pursuing the whole thing, would you say?
Are you enjoying it so far?
I am enjoying it. It took me a little bit of time in the beginning because I was like, okay, where are they going with this? But it has been really tense, and I love that I don't know any of those actors at all. I've never seen any of them before. So
the character development's good, and they make some really strong choices, and it builds up so that something pretty big happens in most episodes. The momentum just builds. So I if you've liked it so far, I think stick with it because it does get better, especially the first 2 seasons. The first 2 seasons are really good. And all the actors are great. They're all just so different, and it's beautifully shot as well. It looks amazing, and it's all sound stages, obviously, all of it. But they've did a great job. Have you seen? There's a show called The Eddy that's on Netflix. Yes. I've got 2 more to watch of The Eddy. Yeah, I mean, I've really enjoyed that. I love Damien Chazelle anyway, but the music, the cast, everything. Have you been loving it? I've been watching it so far. I'm not as far as you. I've taken it super slow, but it started to get good around the 3rd episode. Not get good. It started to build faster around there. But the music, I'm just watching it for the music half the time.
Totally. It's, I mean, the Joanna Kulig, the actress who plays Maya, did you see Cold War?
No.
The Polish film. So oh my gosh, actually I couldn't recommend it enough. So Thomas Cott plays the other lead, and Joanna Kulig, the actress that plays Maya, is the female lead, and it's a really emotional, really beautiful love story in Polish. If you can watch it, I think it's probably on Amazon, but it's amazing. All black and white. It's a period film. Yeah, I don't want to almost say anymore because I don't really want to ruin it for you, but please watch it. It's beautiful.
All right. If I watch it, I'll send my notes on a postcard.
Yeah, make sure you do.
Right. Do. Let's wrap this up. I always wrap these up with the Inside the Actor Studio 10 questions that James Lipton would ask people. So
great.
I'm gonna give you James Lipton, in honor of James Lipton, his 10 questions. So whatever comes to mind for you. Whatever your gut instinct is to reply with. So the first question is, what is your favorite word?
Absolutely.
Okay. I thought it was the inhale for a second. I thought your favorite word was
we use it all the time.
Really?
Yeah.
The joys of casting.
The joys of casting. I know. I don't know why I say it all the time. I'm sure I probably should have a better answer than that, but I always feel like absolutely is just a very passionate word.
It's strong.
The answer to so many questions. Yeah.
It's very affirmative as opposed to just yes, which could be,
Yeah. No, it's a solid, It's a firm, passionate yes.
Just like that. Yep. Exactly. See, you didn't say absolutely there, and it was a different tone. I get it.
Yeah. Totally.
There too. What's your least favorite word?
Oh God, that's a good question. I hate the word moist.
Okay.
For many reasons.
We could just leave it there.
Oh God, I'm trying to think of it. Yeah, fine. I was trying to think of it and say, do you know what? I hate the word woke. I really hate the word woke in this current climate. It's a word I've been called woke once. In my very bad job interview that I had for that terrible film, I was accused of being woke, and ever since then I've been very obsessed about it.
For having an opinion. How dare you?
For having an opinion, exactly.
I'm not a fan of the word woke either, or the extremism that comes with either side of what that means. So
totally. No, it's I think it's insulting.
I don't know if you're allowed to say that in this current climate, otherwise you might get attacked or cancelled, but let's not go.
Oh well, probably. Yeah, fine, don't. Me personally, I just don't enjoy the word.
No, I hear you. Next question is, what turns you on in a creative, spiritual, intellectual kind of way?
Oh, you mean in terms of like when you meet somebody, or like
whatever? It could be any of that. It could be person related, or just a process, or art, or whatever that means for you, really.
I guess, gosh, that's a tough question. I guess being taken outside of your comfort zone, for me, is always the most interesting experience, and you always seem to discover something new about yourself, and perhaps any issues you might have had before, or views that you'd had on things. It's always nice to be challenged and made to see things differently, I guess. Yeah, probably being taken outside of my comfort zone. Being made to feel uncomfortable sometimes is necessary, I think.
If you want to grow or have a life that feels a little bit and a little bit enriched.
Exactly.
What turns you off then, in the converse to that question?
Turns you off? Negativity, probably. I find I was having a conversation with some friends recently about I've been with my boyfriend for 12 years, so I have never done the online dating thing, but I think if I was to go on a date with somebody and they were very negative, that would be an instant turn off for me. Similarly, when you meet actors, when you meet anybody and they're negative, and it really brings your energy and dims your light, and I guess that's probably my turn off, I suppose.
And you can feel it too, right? Like, it's not just what people say or even how they express themselves, although it is.
Yeah.
A vibe.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong, obviously not everybody's had great experiences in life, and, there are people who have had terrible things happen to them or experience, and those are things that are totally worth sharing. But, I guess in our line of work and our world, when you're working with people on exciting projects, and we're also blessed to work in this industry, it's always nice to work with people who are positive and want to actively change things for the better and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, probably negativity, I would say.
I think that works. That makes sense.
In our line of work, yeah.
The next question, I guess, is kind of optional, only because some people might not feel it's on brand or what they want to answer, and it's only because it's what's your favorite swear word. And I curse my ass off, so I mean, I don't care. Say whatever you want, but if you don't want to, that's okay. I get it.
Well, no? I don't know. I can think of the one I use the most, which is probably very anti-feminist, which is the C word, the 4-letter C word, which I say a lot in the car when driving.
At other people?
At other people, yeah. It's definitely something that I probably should limit. Or start a swear jar or something in the car where I don't say it so much, but that seems to be the swear word I use the most. Is that shameful?
No.
Feminists will be knocking on my door.
I know, they'll be like, you can't be part of the woke community now because you're
exactly, you're out.
And then there's going to be the road rage group that are going to be like, you're not representing us properly, and so you can't win.
Wouldn't be surprised.
Amazing. Yeah, don't go on Twitter. Just stay off of it.
No, exactly. What's your favorite word?
My favorite swear word. I mean, the one I use the most would be fuck. Because it's so interchangeable. But I mean, swearing in Spanish has a different something to it. Like, culturally in Spain, it's more flippant. So swearing isn't quite as big of a deal. It is, but like people are just generally like throw it away almost as a throwaway.
Oh, really?
Comment.
Much more free with it. Yeah.
But this is going to make me sound like a real asshole. In Spanish, there's me cago en la puta and then something. So that basically, if I literally translate it, means I shit on the, and then insert whatever you want there. So it's kind of like saying, it's a fancy way of saying fuck. Like if something awful happens, you're like, me cago en la puta. But then normally they
sounds much nicer in Spanish.
Yeah, but when you realize what it really means, like a lot of people say, I shit on your fucking mother, if you literally translate it. Yeah, see?
Yeah.
You know, I'm going to have people coming after me too now for saying that. In Spanish, it sounds all melodious and charming. And in English, it's like, oh, you need to be incarcerated. What's wrong with you? You're the first person that's turned the question back on me and said, what's your favorite swear word too?
Oh, really?
So I appreciate that because it makes me then go out of my comfort zone.
Yeah.
And make me answer and have my own medicine fed back to me.
Yes, well, exactly.
What's your favorite sound or noise? Was it that banging the door?
Oh no, sorry, banging of the door. Well, my younger sister, who is 11, recently introduced me to all the ASMR stuff, which I can't stand. I don't want to listen to anyone eating KFC, so definitely not that. Sound or noise? Oh gosh, I mean, anything to do with the outside, I suppose, nature. Like since all of this coronavirus period has happened, suddenly I hear the birds singing in the trees outside my flat, and I never heard them before, with all the aeroplanes and pollution and all that kind of stuff. So I guess I've loved hearing that. I'm trying to think of the kettle being on. That's a real joy for me. When you know that tea is coming. Everyone loves a cup of tea. Well, I hope they do. Oh God, that's such a hard question. I think those are the two immediate things I can think of.
a cup of tea you can have whilst listening to the birds chirping at your apartment. There you go. You've already answered the next question of what's your least favorite noise or sound, because it's clearly yeah.
The ASMR stuff is so weird. Like my sister likes kind of nails on a steering wheel, or like all of that stuff. I just don't know how people can. But it's a craze. People love it.
I guess.
But oh God.
Each to their own.
People chewing gum or like sniffing. Oh God, can't cope.
My mind has many questions on the sniffing point, but I'm going to leave it there.
Unbearable.
I'm not touching that with a 20-foot pole. Almost there. So the final few. What's the job or profession that you would most like to attempt, of what you haven't done before already, obviously?
Oh gosh, job profession I'd most like to attempt. I would really love, I've watched quite a few programs on this, and I've also met somebody who does it. I'd love to train guide dogs. Okay. So I really love dogs, and I'm very really interested in dogs working with people a lot more in real life, especially in a kind of caring therapeutic capacity. So that would be definitely something. I mean, the thought of being able to train up some lovely Labrador guide dogs would be the dream.
We'll have to get you on a retreat with the dog whisperer to teach you all of his tricks.
Oh, I know. It'll be lovely. I know, the dream.
What's
one day maybe?
What would be your least favorite job or profession you would never want to attempt under any circumstances?
Oh God, being a dentist probably.
I'm gonna do it.
It's quite eye-opening when you see inside other people's mouths. I don't think I could handle being a dentist.
and the power that comes with having a drill that basically could just
it's just too much responsibility, but also too much grossness.
yeah the worst storm of things that you don't want in your life. Right.
Exactly.
Last question. We'll get all kind of fluffy and airy fairy with it, and it's
great.
At the end of your life, when it's all said and done, what would you like the story of your life to be?
Oh my God, story of my life to be.
Or what impact or legacy would you like to feel like you've had?
To leave behind. Oh my God. Do you mean like in my job or like in general?
In your life. As forget Jemima, just casting person. Just Jemima McWilliams, the human being, which is more interesting.
Human being. Well, and it's a very, very hard question, but something that I'm really trying to work on at the moment is being a much better listener. I have one friend, my best friend, who is so good at listening. You know how in this kind of world we live in, sometimes you can have a conversation with someone and you always feel like their mind is elsewhere, or they're slightly clock watching because they've got somewhere else to be. Actually, this is what's been quite nice about coronavirus, is that there hasn't been so much of this. So I feel like I would really like...
Sorry, what was that? What were you saying? Sorry, I didn't quite catch that. I wasn't paying attention.
But it's so hard. Like I'm guilty of it too. Like sometimes my boyfriend will be talking to me about something and I'll be worrying about something else, and I'm pretending I'm listening, but I'm actually, my mind is occupied. And so I would really like to be better, and for people to remember me as somebody that was a really good listener and who they wanted to talk to about things when they were going wrong or when they're going right, and that they knew that I would, really hear them. I think sometimes we just don't really hear each other enough, I guess.
There's lots of distractions.
Hard question, though.
Yeah, what's different for everybody, and maybe it changes as well at different stages in life. But I think there's been lots of distractions, and I think I had a psychologist friend on the show a few months back, and she said that, look, this has been forcing us to come face to face with ourselves a little bit, and without all these external distractions, you kind of have to, unless you complete Netflix and find some outlet to keep that at bay. And I think you realize, like, to your point, maybe with listening as an example, how much we think we're doing it, but really maybe haven't been fully doing it, because there's always something else. There's always another distraction. There's always another notification on your phone or whatever.
Always. No, it's true. And there's always somewhere else to be. And they're always, I guess it's one of the nice things about being on holiday is that you suddenly stop, and kind of like it is at the moment, though granted it doesn't really feel like a holiday. In fact, it doesn't feel like a holiday at all. But, suddenly you aren't faced with, all of these schedules. And actually it means you give yourself and give other people, hopefully, so much more time and attention, which I think we could all do more of. I certainly could.
I think it's perspective and just focusing on what really matters in life. That sounds so corny, I know, but it is that, like,
no, but it's true.
There's a truth to it. Like, yes, we all work in the film and TV industry and we want to do amazing work, and that's important, but not just for the sake of it, and
you want to feel like you did your best by people, and that like, I feel so strongly that I really strongly believe in karma, and I think if you're a good person and you put a lot out there, then it will come back to you. The actors who are terribly behaved and are horrible people are not the actors that work a lot often. Sometimes it takes a while for people to be bold enough not to hire them, but it's true. And it's the same with casting directors. It's the same, I like to think, across the world, and with anything, exactly. And I think doing your best is so good for you and good for everyone else.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, listen, it's been an absolute pleasure. I don't know how long we've gone on for, but
don't worry.
No, I've had a good time. It's been great. I think there's lots of great stuff that came out of it. And on cue, I can hear your birds chirping. So it's like they're calling you. Like they're
calling me out.
They're calling you for your cup of tea. So no.
I think the kettle is on.
Ooh.
If he knows what's good for him.
Wow. I'll bleep that part out of the chat out so you don't come across.
Oh God, yes, probably for the best.
So you can get attacked. No, right, Jemima, you're a star. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. It's been loads of fun. Thank you very much for having me.
I'm glad. Right, I'm out of here. Take care.
Take care, Ashley. Thank you.
Bye bye.